Right. So today we're going to try and really get into Jillian Michaels and Heidi Rhoades.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. This is going to be good. We have some text here, that kind of goes through their relationship.
Mm-hmm.
And she's kind of a titan, right? Fitness, like she's huge in fitness.
Oh yeah. I mean, from The Biggest Loser, I mean, everybody, I think, knows her from The Biggest Loser, right?
Yeah, like her persona is very strong, like no nonsense, kind of thing.
Absolutely.
And then you have Heidi Rhoades, who kind of has a career like more behind the scenes,
right?
Or a music industry,
right? Yeah, very much behind the scenes.
Yeah, so it's kind of interesting. So, like right off the bat, you're kind of looking at this thinking, how did these two people with such different, I guess, public lives even connect?
Yeah, I mean, how did they connect? And I think what's so interesting about this is, when you look at Jillian, that no nonsense image, does come to mind, immediately.
Right.
But the material suggests that there's, a deeper kind of yearning for connection and family and things like that. And then, you have Heidi who seems to prefer a life outside of the spotlight.
Yeah. Yeah. And so that's kind of what we want to do here. We want to kind of look at this material and try to figure out, like, what were the key aspects of their relationship? How did it begin? How did it evolve?
Right.
And really kind of look at it through the lens of like partnership and parenthood.
Right.
And see what we can kind of glean some insights from their story.
Absolutely.
And so the material we have it's mainly excerpts that kind of provide like a narrative overview of their relationship.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, where did this all begin? Like, how did these two people even, run into each other?
Well, so the text points to an instant connection.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And it was fueled by, it seems like, mutual respect and admiration. While their spheres professionally were vastly different,
Yeah.
They seemed to find common ground in significant areas, a shared focus on health and wellness, and it seems they both had a desire to create a family.
Okay, so this is interesting already, right?
Yeah.
You have Jillian, who's like, again, that big, strong personality, but she's wanting a family, wanting connection.
Mm-hmm.
And you have Heidi, who's more private, but they share those values.
Yes. Yes. And what's even more interesting, what I found interesting about this, at least in the beginning, is that, it doesn't talk about grand gestures and big dates and things like that. It's more, it emphasizes quiet, meaningful moments.
Oh, that's fascinating. That's a really good point.
Yeah.
So like, rather than being, swept off her feet, it was more about like just connecting on a deeper level.
Right.
So with Jillian, who we see in the public eye as this very strong, assertive, force of nature almost.
Yeah.
Do you think she kind of found a sense of calm in that kind of dynamic with Heidi?
It really does suggest a complementary pairing.
Right.
I mean, maybe Jillian's outward intensity was balanced by Heidi's maybe more grounded nature.
Mm-hmm.
Creating a space where Jillian felt safe to kind of explore a different side of herself.
Yeah. I mean, you see that a lot in relationships, right? Where maybe it's not necessarily like, birds of a feather flocking together, but it's more about how those differences complement each other and create a more maybe even a more resilient partnership.
Absolutely. Yeah. It's like a puzzle piece,
Right.
You have two different pieces, but they fit together perfectly to make a whole picture.
Yeah. And it seems like this early foundation is kind of, it's key to understanding how they navigated the more public aspects of their lives later on.
Yeah, for sure.
Because then we get to the reality show.
Yeah, just Jillian.
Just Jillian.
Right.
So, Heidi, who we were getting this picture of someone who's private, she becomes a part of this show that's offering a pretty intimate look into Jillian's life.
Yeah. How did that happen?
I mean, it's kind of amazing.
Yeah.
What did that show? What did we learn about their relationship from just Jillian?
Well, I think just Jillian offered like a really nuanced perspective on Jillian as a person.
Mm-hmm.
I think viewers saw a more vulnerable and affectionate side of her, especially in the interactions with Heidi.
Yeah.
It wasn't, you get glimpses into their routines and just the kind of lighter moments of their life, but also just like, the challenges, challenges of building a life together.
Right. It kind of humanizes, right?
It does.
Like it takes her out of that fitness guru image,
Absolutely, yeah. And it showcases that affection, I think, that was there, and the genuine partnership.
Yeah, yeah. And then, on top of all of this, they embark on this journey of building their family,
Right.
right? Jillian adopted Lucrezia for Haiti,
Right.
and around the same time, Heidi gave birth to their son, Phoenix.
Yeah.
I mean, that must have been just a huge, like, life-changing experience for both of them, to have your children arrive at roughly the same time.
Oh, absolutely. And you think about Jillian with her inherent drive, right? And her structured approach to life, and then suddenly she encounters the unpredictability of parenthood. And then you have Heidi, whose nurturing qualities were evident from the beginning, really kind of just flourishes, in motherhood. And what is noteworthy is how they kind of came together to create, a home environment that's centered around, it seems, these shared values, like health and kindness and resilience.
Yeah. It's really, it speaks to their commitment, doesn't it?
Oh, for sure.
To not only each other, but to creating this family. And you think about Jillian's career, it's incredibly demanding, right?
Yeah.
I mean, she's got the books, she's got the TV appearances, she's got her brand constantly expanding.
Right. Always on the go.
Yeah. And then to balance that with the needs of two young children, I mean, that's gotta be tough.
It's a huge juggling act.
Yeah.
And the text underscores how important Heidi was as kind of a steady foundation at home. While Jillian's out there, very public facing, Heidi's providing that essential stability,
Yeah.
that nurturing presence that allows their family to thrive. And this really illustrates, I think, a really key point, how in partnerships you have different contributions, right?
Yes.
But they're equally crucial.
Yeah.
You need both.
Yeah.
And the text specifically mentions like the effort and the compromise that's required to make it work.
Right, because you're trying to blend these two very different worlds, right?
Exactly.
And then in 2016, we see their commitment kind of take another step.
Yeah.
They get engaged. And the text points out that, Jillian, she hadn't necessarily envisioned like a traditional marriage for herself.
Oh, interesting.
But this decision, this step to get engaged really signals how deeply she felt for Heidi.
That's beautiful. Yeah.
And it's not just about the marriage, right? Like the act of getting married.
Right.
It's symbolic of this deeper commitment.
Right.
That they're making to each other and to this family unit that they've created.
Yeah. And what the text kind of highlights is the everyday commitment, right?
Yeah.
It's not just about, the wedding day. It's about that consistent support, the shared responsibilities of raising children and this ongoing journey, it seems, of personal and relational growth.
Yeah. And of course, they're in the public eye.
Yeah.
They have these intense careers and they're raising young children. There are going to be challenges, right?
Absolutely. I mean, that's life, right?
Yeah, that's just life. And the text does allude to some of the difficulties they faced. You have the fame, you have the career pressures, and just, individual differences.
Right.
How do they kind of navigate those bumps in the road?
Well, the text suggests that open communication and mutual respect were really key. It implies that, while their affection for each other was a strong base, they also recognized the need for individual growth, within the context of their partnership, and that willingness to openly address difficulties and prioritize understanding seems to have been really, really crucial.
Yeah. I mean, and it sounds like the relationship had, a real impact on both of them.
Oh, yeah.
Jillian, who we know for that, kind of tough exterior, it seems like she became more reflective, more willing to embrace vulnerability.
Right.
And Heidi, she kind of transitioned into this new chapter focused on family and well-being.
That's a really beautiful point because, the text highlights this personal evolution, right? Suggesting that, strong relationships, often allow us to grow individually,
Yeah.
and to understand ourselves better.
Yeah. And they also shared this belief in a holistic approach to well-being, right?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Recognizing that physical health and emotional and mental well-being, it's all connected.
Right. It's all part of the same puzzle.
Yeah. And that makes their separation in 2018 all the more kind of it's noteworthy.
Oh, yeah.
Because the text frames it as a difficult decision, but it also emphasizes the grace and mutual respect that characterized, their parting.
Right.
And you don't always hear that, especially when you're talking about people in the public sphere.
Right. It can get messy sometimes.
Yeah, it can get messy. Yeah.
But what's really striking here is their continued commitment to their family bond, even after the romantic relationship had ended.
Boy.
It's clear they prioritized the well-being of their children, above all else.
Yeah. And that seems to be like the ongoing narrative, right? You have Jillian continuing her very public career, Heidi maintaining a more private life, but they're both actively involved in co-parenting, in raising Lucrezia and Phoenix.
Absolutely. And that's a really powerful statement, I think, because it shows that the definition of family can extend beyond just a romantic partnership.
Yeah.
It's about that love. It's about that commitment. Yeah.
To raising those children together.
Yeah, and it really shows a level of maturity, too.
Absolutely.
To be able to do that.
Yeah, and a commitment that transcends, I think, the structure of what we traditionally see as a romantic relationship.
Right. It suggests that maybe their vision of family remained intact, even as their own personal dynamic shifted.
Exactly. Yeah. It's evolving, but it's still there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I guess as we kind of wrap this up, we've looked at all this material. What would you say are like the key takeaways from Jillian and Heidi's story?
Well, I think their story, as it's presented here, it's really a story about love and change and resilience.
Yeah.
They built this beautiful family.
Yeah.
They supported each other through really significant life events, and ultimately they navigated their separation with a focus on respect and the well-being of their children.
And I think it reinforces the idea that love comes in many forms,
Right.
and that commitment to family can endure even after a romantic partnership comes to an end.
It's definitely a lot to think about.
It is. It's inspiring in a way.
Yeah, it really is. And so thinking about Jillian and Heidi and everything that they went through, what do you think are the essential ingredients for navigating any kind of long-term partnership? Whether it's romantic or otherwise.
Yeah.
Especially when you're dealing with external pressures and just life and all the changes that life throws at you.
Right.
And what about family?
Yeah.
Like in today's world, what does family really mean?
It's a big question.
Yeah, it's a big question. It's something to think about.
Absolutely.
Well, thanks for taking this deep dive with us.
This was great.
Yeah, this was really interesting.
Really interesting.
All right, and we'll see you all next time.